So I don't think it's unusual by any means, or unique rather, that every couple of years I get like super nostalgic for the time just a couple years before that. For an example, like not exactly right now, but more so, I'd say probably around like November-ish of last year, I got really nostalgic out of nowhere for 2021. Like, you know, when COVID was still kind of happening and all that stuff, right? I got super nostalgic for that for some reason. And I even found myself to a point trying to like redo some of the things I did during COVID. Like I tried playing some Bed Wars with friends because I was like, this is what I did during COVID. Let's like do this again on a Friday night now, because that's, you know, that's what I remember doing. And it was so fun. And I say all this to the ends that I kind of have to remind myself whenever this happens that like, it's kind of, I'm going back and forth on what word to use here because, well, you'll know what I decided on by the title of this video, but I don't know to call it a concept, a construct, an illusion, maybe, but the good old days that you remember, they just like happened already. You know what I mean? It's sort of like when you're in school and you're doing a math problem, right? Think of like when you were in the end of high school in like Calc 1 or whatever, right? And you're doing a math problem and you can't help but be like, man, wasn't it so simple that like back when I was doing geometry, like I'd love to do some Pythagorean theorem right now. Like you're thinking about that. And I think it's important to remind yourself, like you thought Pythagorean theorem was just as hard when you just started it. Like it wasn't, it's not that like that was a much better equation to be doing. It's that that's a problem you already solved. So now you can look back on it and go, man, I crave that simpler equation, just like you crave those simpler times. You don't crave those times because they were good. You craved them because all the problems you had back then, or at least a large majority of them, are either solved now or forgotten, you know? And I don't think that's why I always got to remind myself, like, it's just an illusion. It's not that these were actually better times than right now. In 2 years, I'll be looking back on right now, this very moment, going, man, when I was in those first 200 episodes of Paint and Talk and just living that life, that was the best. Like, I'll be doing that 100%. And it'll be just as illogical on me as me looking back during COVID, being like, man, those were the times. You know, they're never gonna be the times. It's always just a different set of problems to solve. I think one of the saddest things to me is when I meet somebody who's like older in life, you know, maybe they've gone through like their 40s, usually somewhere around that area, and they'll talk to me about like their peak. They'll be like, yeah, I peaked at this point in life. And it's like, man, that's just a sad way to look at things, you know? Sometimes it's I don't want to say logical, but at least attached to something, you know, sometimes they'll be like, this is when I was making the most money, and that was like the most secure I'd ever been, right? Sometimes, and stuff like that, I mean, listen, I think there's a whole other conversation to be had maybe about that not being the best, or rather the healthiest way to like look at success. But fine, that's based on something. But people will often look back at a peak, especially if they maybe didn't have a financial like peak in life and they're just saying it because they remember them being really happy, and it'll be based out of nothing. It'll just be kind of like, oh, those were just great times. I remember, like, speaking personally right now for a second, when it came to COVID, right, that's this time I was getting nostalgic for, I was the most depressed I'd ever been. Like, I remember I would listen to Cigarette Daydreams by Cage the Elephant and just lay on my bed until 4 a.m. I wasn't tired nor awake, and I had nothing to do, so that was my activity. And I would just like cry. Like that was like my hobby for at least 2 months. And ignoring the fact that I just said that publicly and it's going to be on the internet forever, ignoring that for a second, guys, we don't got to focus on that, right? I still have the ability to look back on those times and go, man, that was the best. Want to know why? Because I have no reason to be sitting on my bed anymore crying to Cage the Elephant. I kind of didn't then either, but like, you know, it was COVID. It was a different time. We were all crying on our beds to Cage the Elephant, guys. We don't need to address that too much. But really, I think the reason I can look back at it so fondly is just because like, it's like, oh, like I don't have I still have problems now, but I solved that one, and that makes it all seem better. Because if I could solve that one, then like that was a good time, that was a simpler time because that was an easier problem. And the reality is that wasn't an easier problem. I just got over it. And the problems that I have now, that I try not to bring too many of like my current life problems to Paint&Talk, because I think this show could really quickly devolve into like me just going like, and this is what happened at work, and this is what's going wrong right now. Like, I think that could really easily happen, that's why I try to make things either past anecdotes or more topic-based, but that's a whole side tangent. It seems like those problems were simpler, but they're only simpler because I already solved them, And I mean, at least when it comes to crying to Cage the Elephant during COVID, the problem like in the world's kind of changed. Now that was a whole different thing. But when it comes to like, I remember about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, I was getting really nostalgic for the time like right before COVID, right? And like I had problems then too. Like I remember it was just as bad as, well, not bad during COVID. I think that's a unique situation for sure, but the point is problems always persisted, and we just look back at these because they seem simpler in comparison to what we're dealing with right now. But they're not, guys. They're not simpler. Things aren't, and things haven't, listen, I don't know everyone's situation watching this. I'm going to speak very broadly from what I've observed in talking to people and in, just living my own life. Everyone's life is different. I mean, there are real possibilities that some people watching this have gone through maybe huge loss financially, or like things happen that can be really bad. I've had some things happen that are bad since that period that, I definitely look and go like, man, things have definitely gotten worse in that regard. But speaking, at least for myself, and I hope for many of you, from a large scale, things aren't better or worse, they just are. Things are just happening and existing, and it's important to remember that the problem right in front of you is always going to seem the biggest because you have to solve it right now. There are tons of things in my life that are going to catch up to me in 5 years. 100%, and in everybody's life. Like, that's just how things work, right? And when that happens, those will seem like the biggest problems in the world. The only reason they don't right now is because I get to ignore them, right? And that's how that goes, This talking out loud about this is slightly motivating me to like go deal with them a little bit more, but that's beside the point. Like, you just got to take things as they come to you, I feel like, and having some sort of, I feel like there's two sides to this, right? One, I feel like nostalgia is bad because I, on a personal level, just want to be like I love what my life is right now. And I usually try to make sure that that's a statement I can say. Anytime I've been in where it's like, I can't say I'm loving my life right now, I really try and change it as fast as I can. If it's in my power to, But outside of that, like, I think there is sort of a good part of this, right? That instead of looking back on the things you went through maybe a year ago or more and being like, man, like things were so much simpler back then, things were so much easier, I feel like the right message to take away is like, oh, I solved that back then. I got this. Like, I'm going to solve this now. And, it's that whole thing of going like, I learned Pythagorean theorem. Is it theory or theorem? Guys, I don't know math. I hate math. Don't ask me. But, I don't know which one it is. I think it's theorem. Theorem makes me sound smarter, so I'll say theorem. People developing these theories have nothing on people developing theorems. I don't know the difference. I don't know what those words mean, but man, does theorem sound much better. And I just think that's how it goes. Like, you learn Pythagorean theorem, you'll get through Calc 2 or Calc 1. I never made it past Calc 1. I dropped out of Calc 1. So this is a bad analogy because I, in fact, did not make it out of Calc 1. But that's because I wanted to take a different class back then. That's not because maybe I couldn't have done it. I don't know, guys. I'm really bad at math. If it's not apparent, I'm terrible at math. I think like there's been at least 10 episodes of Paint and Talk where I spend like a minute at the end trying to add with my fingers to figure out what episode we're on. Like, it's bad. But you, not me, you passed Calc 1, and you're gonna pass Calc 2 next, you know? Like, I think that's how we gotta see things. I think it's important to be not so much romanticizing the past, but to be realistic about the past, and instead going, man, I wish I could go back, or man, things were so much better. We should say I got through that, and I'm here today, so I'll get through this, and I'll be here tomorrow too. And if everything is good right now and you don't have a single worry in the world, enjoy it, because it's gonna get so much worse. Sorry, I don't know why I said that. That was mean. That was a very bitter note to end this episode on. But no, seriously, like, I think, like, right now is gonna be the good old days someday. And the days that you were in the good old days, you were thinking there were some other good old days back then too. You know what I mean? And that's why, listen, I think the idea of living in the moment, I think it's a little bit messy, right? Because it's like, if living in the moment becomes an active thing, you feel like it almost, like, now you're making an effort to live in the moment more than actually living in the moment. I don't know. That whole concept confuses me, the whole living in the moment thing. And that's clearly a Paint and Talk for another day. But I do think it's important, maybe not so much to live in the moment, to be realistic about the moment, and be realistic about the moments that came before it, and understand that, you know, stuff happened then, stuff's happening now, stuff will happen tomorrow, and look at what's around you and go, man, there's stuff I'm going to be nostalgic about this one day. And usually it's the worst parts about it, which is strange. Have you guys ever noticed that you romanticize the bad things from back then? Like whenever I've gone through a period where I'm super worn out and waking up at like 4 a.m. every day, I look back and I'm like, man, hitting my alarm at 4 a.m. was beautiful back then. It's weird, right? It's weird how that works. This is the painting. More of this red architecture and just playing with forms. I think what's good about this, just thinking, like, taking it away from what I'm actually trying to depict here, and it's a little messy in like this cross section here on this one. I think what's good about this is, like, I'm practicing spheres, triangles, and cubes, like, a ton. And that's great, that's really good. And there's some serious improvement in my cube game. Go back to Paint and Talk 4, 5, 3. Go back to one of those early Paint and Talks where I paint a red cube. Way worse than this. And on the one hand, like, duh, I should have improved. It's Paint and Talk 110. On the other hand, though, shout out to Cube Game, because we're rocking it these days. But yeah, go check this out over on Instagram. And until next time, guys, gals, and pals, my name is Max Seiss. This has been Paint Talk, episode 110. I'm here every morning, painting and talking with you all.